Great. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am Shahzah Khan. It is an honor and pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar, The Ultimate Guide to College Applications. Can you see my screen, Hamza? Can you let
Yep.
me know?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Great. So this is going to be a panel discussion with a phenomenal group of panelists, mashallah. I'm really honored and so grateful to all of you for having joined us, both the panelists and all of you, the audience. And I want to start off actually by asking you to share a little bit about yourself. Let's see if I can launch this poll. I want to know what's your role. So if you're, do you see that poll pop up on your screen? Would love for you to take a couple minutes here and I'll share the results in just another, maybe I'll give it a minute. And if you've already gone ahead and answered the poll that you see here on your screen, I want you to also take a minute or a few seconds, and all of us, as a reminder to myself too, to set our intentions. What's your intention for being here tonight? Maybe you're here, maybe it's, let me give myself, maybe I'm here just because it's something I do for the ISLA, and I'll share a little bit about what the ISLA is. Maybe you're here because your parents told you to join. Maybe you're here because your friend is a panelist. Whatever your role is, allow yourself to make your intention an even higher intention. Compound it with something that would be pleasing to Allah. So I'll take a few seconds and I'll be quiet and I'll set my intentions and try and elevate my intention as I encourage you all to do the same. Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khairan for engaging in that with me. I really find it extremely beneficial to do that, mashallah. We actually have 80 out of 104 participants, 81, who have responded to this poll. That is phenomenal response rate, 77%. But yeah, just setting those intentions right from the beginning, I think for me, it just helps me refocus and take a minute to really think about the bigger picture, right? Sometimes it's like we're just here for a webinar, but there's something so much more beautiful. There's so many more things that are deeper than that. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now and share the results. All right. So can you guys see the results right there? Who's, let's see, Hamza, Hikma, do you guys see the results on your screen?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, great. All right, so we've got many high schoolers, freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. I think that's the biggest group here, and parents, mashallah. Thank you, parents. You're amazing. We've got just a couple of college counselors. Okay. A few school administrators, maybe you kind of wear both of those hats or hijabs in your school, perhaps. A few middle school students, bravo, mashallah, really proud of y'all. And several high school seniors. So I'm really proud of, I don't mean to sound patronizing, but it's really awesome to have the seniors here taking charge and all of the students, especially here, taking charge of your learning and your experience. Bismillah. I know that we have shorter attention span, so I need to move it along. Bismillah, let's go.
Mm.
All right, so really quickly, I am Shahzah Khan. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called the Islamic Schools League of America. We primarily support full-time Islamic schools around the United States. We estimate there's anywhere from 300 to 400 full-time Islamic schools, serving 50 to 75,000 students, K through 12. And ISLA ourselves, our discussion email list is 1,000 plus, but we extend out to 6,000 professionals who work in the field of Islamic education here in the US and beyond. And we've been around for about 25 years. We focus on research, resources, and relationships. So you can imagine that this webinar is one of the webinars where we're trying to provide some of the relationships that we have and extend that information to you, as well as the resources that these wonderful individuals can share with you, inshallah. So, oh, okay, hello. So we're going to get right into our panelists, inshallah. We're going to kind of go step by step with each of the panelists, give them 5 to 10 minutes to talk about some questions that we thought would be beneficial. And inshallah, if you as audience members have questions that you want to ask, feel free to drop that in the chat. If the speaker sees it or if it seems like an opportune time, I'll kind of ask them that question as well and ask them to address that either during their 5 to 10 minutes or at the end. So, feel free to make this interactive, especially through the chat, just given the number of people we have. So our first panelist is Hamzah Henshaw. And Hamzah and I have an announcement to make at the end of this webinar. We'll be sharing some information for those of you who are administrators and college counselors about some opportunities to learn more. But for right now, we're excited to have Hamzah talk about a few questions. Before I present those questions, I'd like to introduce him. Hamzah Henshaw was born and raised in Boston and accepted Islam in 1994 as a teenager while attending St. Mark's, a boarding school in Southborough, Massachusetts. He graduated from Harvard in 2001, concentrating in Near Eastern languages and civilizations with a minor in economics. In 2005, he completed the Center for Arabic Study Abroad program, fully funded at the American University in Cairo. In 2010, he received his master's in teaching English to speakers of other languages, TESOL. He's taught at the Islamic Academy of New England in Massachusetts, West Green International School in UAE, and the American Language Center in Morocco. In addition to founding Five Before College very recently, which he might speak a little bit more about, he also works at An-Nur Academy in Massachusetts, serving as the college guidance counselor for its high school students. He's also taught English there and has many more things that we could say, but for now, Hamzah, we'll leave it at that, inshallah. Hamzah, given the expertise that you have in college counseling, we wanted you to take a few minutes to talk about this process that our students right now might be really interested in knowing. Particularly, what are the most important steps students should be taking throughout high school to prepare for a successful college application process? If you could focus on outlining some key activities, habits, or strategies that freshmen, sophomores, and juniors should be focusing on to set themselves up for success when it comes to time to apply. And Hamzah, of course, some of that will also relate to our seniors, and other panelists will talk about what our seniors here should be doing as well. So Hamzah, if you could kind of delve into some of that, inshallah, and add in whatever expertise, other tips and that you would like to share with our audience here.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here to see this wonderful panel. I know many of you, alhamdulillah. So I think it's a great question because it's sort of built into my company name, Five Before College. The time to start thinking about college is not your junior and senior year. A lot of times people will come to educational consultants like Salman or myself as seniors and one thing, no matter how good we are at our job, we can't go back in time. We can't say, hey, why didn't you spend your ninth grade summer more, better? Why do you do all this random mishmash of activities, and so on. So that's one thing. It's great to have all these middle school students, these younger sort of underclassmen here, because this is really the critical time. And in terms of what you should be doing, I put together just a few slides, so I'm gonna just share my screen if that's okay. Let's see if that works. That's not it. Yeah. Is that showing up?
Yep, we see it.
I think it's is that like full screen now?
We see your
No.
notes.
Oh,
Yeah,
then
we
I
see the
see the
next
notes.
slide.
Okay. Perfect.
There we
Okay.
go. Now we see it.
All right, so Bismillah. So when you look at this this picture, right, there's only one thing that you probably see, right? And that is that red umbrella right in the middle of the frame. So this is sort of a metaphor for, college and college applications and so on. These big schools are getting so many applications, and the vast majority of them, they look like the black umbrellas. They fade into the background. You know, what you really want to do and how you want to spend those first 5 years of you know, leading up to college is everything in your power to become that red umbrella, right? And Hamza, it's not as complicated as it might seem. So how do we do that? This is sort of a big idea that you know, a lot of people will ask me, should we be are colleges looking for well-rounded kids, or are colleges looking for pointy kids, right? And really, after thinking about it for a long time, definitely it's better to be pointy. In other words, it's better to have, you know, one or two spikes, one or two things that are really special about you. And ideally those one or two things might be quite different from one another, right? And this is an exercise to help people find their sort of twin peaks, their twin spikes. It's the two-word summary, right? So the classical coder, right? That's actually a student of mine that I worked with. Her two things that she was really into obsessively were computer science and, you know, programming and that sort of thing, and then also classics, Latin and Greek, a really unusual combo. And so she wrote, you know, a college essay about like what Julius Caesar can teach us about algorithms, you know, something very out of the box, very different, and just sort of combining her two interests, right? The quarterback poet, right? As soon as you say that, so when you're applying to college, you want to make it really simple for the admissions officers to know who you are. And there is an element of branding or marketing or whatever you want to call it. So you need to try to figure out what your two-word summary is. And the sooner you start thinking about this, the easier it is to start making strategic decisions about what to focus your limited amount of time on. So another tool to help you do this is called the Ikigai. I think of this as sort of a Venn diagram on steroids. It's you know, it has 5 overlapping circles. Sorry, 4 overlapping circles. What you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. Right? What you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. And so the idea of this is, in order to figure out what your spike is, what your thing is, like how you want to do it, you start thinking about this early on in high school and looking for that thing that's right in the middle, right? What you know, that's the overlap of all those things that you love, that you're good at, that you can be paid for, and that the world needs, right? And if you're missing one of those quadrants, right, you often end up living a life that's lacking in some way. So if you do the top 3, right, and you don't do something that you can be paid well for, that can lead, you know, to sort of frustration and financial challenges. A lot of people get sucked into sort of the corporate world, and they're doing things that they love, they're good at, they can be paid well for, but not necessarily things the world needs, right? So as a high schooler, if you're able to start thinking in these terms, you can actually like game out like where are you trying to even go. If you get in a car, you don't just randomly start driving. You plug it into your GPS first. Most high schoolers don't have any sense of their destination, and as a result, you know, they get sucked into the day-to-day of just checking, you know, grades and you know, just extracurriculars, following someone else's playbook, rather than taking control and figuring out, you know, their own ikigai and what they can do. Once you find your ikigai, try to build a passion project around it. So this is one of my students, Hamda. She founded something called the Hikmah Foundation. This was during COVID. She she started doing some tutoring on Zoom for a group of Kashmiri girls. And later, alhamdulillah, it became so popular that they started tutoring people, refugees, right in their own community. And eventually, by the time she was a senior, she had 25 students working for her. She founded this nonprofit. This is a picture of her. She went to Kashmir and actually taught in person with them. I have other students who I've helped with different projects. So one girl's trying to create a prophetic vegetable garden. She's raising money to buy a city block in Detroit, which apparently you can do for like $3,000 or $4,000, which seems crazy to me. And she's planting fruits and vegetables mentioned in the Quran, and then she's going to sell them at farmers markets. Big project. You can only imagine how, when she's applying to college and she starts talking about that, because she's really into environmentalism and sustainability and things like that, like how much that's just going to pop off the page, right? One of my students, she's she wants to be a geriatrician working with the elderly. So she volunteers at a nursing home, and she's doing sort of like a Humans of New York type project where she goes and interviews all these older people and gets their advice, gets their life stories, and puts it together in a blog, a podcast, some YouTube shorts, and that sort of thing. Halal Jerky Boys is actually one I'm trying to work on with my son. Like we both love beef jerky and we eat zabiha, so it's hard to find and it's expensive. So we just got, a food dehydrator, and rather than just doing it for ourselves, I want to teach him a little bit about business and entrepreneurship. So we're trying to start like a little halal jerky business. So hopefully that gave some sense of things you can do in that time leading up to college. I mean to senior year. And any
Yeah, and Hamza, the other part that we wanted to ask was also, how can juniors and seniors draw from their, and you've talked about this a little bit, from their Islamic values and experiences to differentiate themselves. So is that something that you suggest that so you've mentioned these passion projects and how they could do it on a personal level, but then when it comes to actually the applications process and writing or interviewing, how do they bring that up, or in this environment of Islamophobia, do you suggest hiding that? Sometimes there's some lack of certainty on how to approach that.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean it's a great question and one that I get a lot. I think, ultimately colleges want to know who you are. You have to be yourself. A lot of people try to contort themselves into different shapes to try to present what they think colleges want, and you need to present what you are. For many people, and I'm sure many of the people in this audience in particular, Islam is at the very core of their identity. So for them to present a picture to colleges that somehow neglects that, they're not telling their full story. And so it is okay, but obviously there are ways to do it, and there are ways, that can be alienating or not to do it. So there is some nuance to it. The beauty is our tradition is so vast and so deep, and there are lots of different opportunities. So for example, with the company I mentioned, Five Before College is about those 5 years leading up to college. The other part of Five Before College is it's based on the famous Five Before Five hadith, right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, اغتنموا خمسا قبل خمس, take benefit of five before five, your youth before your old age, your health before sickness, your wealth before poverty, your free time before busyness, and your life before death, right? And so for me, I've sort of recast the high school experience in the light of this hadith, right? So youth before old age is taking care of your academics, your grades, and the best way to do that is through reading. Your health before sickness, it's getting involved with sports and wellness, mental health things. Wealth before poverty, you want to explore careers, get internships, and also look into scholarships on the financial side. Free time before busyness, obviously your extracurriculars, but also your sohbah, your friendships. And life before death is, your akhlaq, your character, and your iman and your faith. But that's just an example that I'm using for myself. But there are so many beautiful hadith like this that you can use. I've had students who write, Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma bi qawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not change the condition of a people until they change what's inside themselves, and that becomes a core. And then they go into discussing ways that they've tried to live up to that ayah over their time. I think, and this is, sort of a foundational principle that I have, that the people that really appeal to colleges are doers. They're people who believe in themselves, have that growth mindset. And so I always tell my students, your I can is more important than your IQ, right? So in other words, like you need to have this almost irrational level of belief in the ability to achieve your goals. So your message to college is sort of like, I am going places. I'm going to be successful in my life, inshallah. And I'm very certain of this. And so you might as well be a part of my story. You might as well, offer me a place so you can be a part of that. But when you have that level of self-belief and that you can do this, you really believe it. And where does that self-belief come from? Your iman is the source of your I can, right? Your iman is the source of your I can, because ultimately, if we submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and really try to draw on the beauty of our tradition, then the sky's the limit. Dua is our superpower, right? When people are making college decisions, we have istikhara. Like, our tradition is so beautiful, right? That we can explore different parts of it to feature. And finally, the sunnah will protect you. The way I became Muslim myself, when I was 15 years old, I was at a boarding school, and there was a student. This is a really bad AI picture of the scene. Um, there's a student named Nabil, and he just, he like had an amazing charisma, but he also practiced Islam very openly, right? He like we'd be brushing our teeth, and he'd be doing these weird ritual with the water. And then he put his feet in the sink, and we're like, "Who is this guy?" He had like a miswak. He was,
Yeah.
doing all that. And the reality is, Hamza, he changed the atmosphere. Three of us ended up embracing Islam. He went on to Harvard himself. He went on to Stanford Business School. MashaAllah, he's extremely successful in his life. But so really embracing your Islamic identity, whether you're at Islamic school or public school, can actually be that differentiating factor. So those are just a few of the things. Alhamdulillah.
Really, really helpful. Thank you so much, Hamza. I think, in this moment where we are definitely, I think many of us feel that there is heightened Islamophobia. I think that's kind of been proven as a fact, especially anybody on a college campus right now can speak to that, right? Mujtuba and Hikmah. Um, it's heartening to hear that that there is a lot, a reminder that there is a lot of benefit in our Islamic identity, of course, from a personal perspective and our faith and our values and our beliefs, as well as from a worldly perspective, inshallah. So, really appreciate that. And actually, this was the thing that really impressed me about Sister Hikmah when I was just introduced to her just a few days ago, mashallah. And what I loved about her, she has an interesting story about, so for the seniors here, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, Brother Hamza has just told us about all these things we should have been doing from like freshman, sophomore, junior year. And Hikmah's like telling me about how she just got started Thanksgiving time, her senior year. And mashallah, look, she's in Colombia, but she had this mindset, right? I think really that embodies that 5 before 5 hadith. So let me go ahead and actually introduce Hikmah properly. Hikmah, I had to look up some information about you because I didn't get your proper bio. So feel free to fill in what I missed out. I saw you played basketball, but I don't got the
Oh,
stats.
so you were really digging deep. Wow.
I tried. Well, Hikmah, and I didn't sound out, I didn't ask you to pronounce your last name for me. I don't want to mess it up.
Oh no, it's Oladejo.
Oladejo.
Yes.
Hikmat Oladejo is a freshman at Columbia University in New York. I'm sure that that's quite a different environment from where she grew up in Fulshire, Texas. I live here in Texas. I never heard of Fulshire. Apparently, it's outside of Katy. Have you heard of it, Mujtaba? Okay. All right. But it's not that small because her graduating class was about 800 students and her high school student population of almost 3,000, 9th through 12th grade. For those of us coming from Islamic schools, that's huge. Today, Hikmah is going to talk a little bit about your college experience, Hikmah. We want you to share, as somebody who recently went through the process. We just heard Brother Hamza, but like, what was your mindset going in? What did you do that worked? And if you want, you can share what do you wish you did, or what do you advise others? As Muslims, we don't say, oh, I would have, should have, but what do you advise others that maybe you learned from your own oversights and experiences? And in all of that, we'd love for you to share some advice that you might have for current high schoolers and the parents who are here listening about opportunities they should actively seek out to strengthen their college applications, just with the knowledge that we have both public and private Islamic school students. And in the chat, I want to ask the students here, are you guys going to Islamic school or to public school? Feel free to drop that in the chat. So Sister Hikmah, we invite you, inshallah, to take on those questions and share with us.
So assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Hikmah. So as was, previously stated, I did kind of start, throughout this college application pretty, like thinking about it pretty late. And I think that was because I had this very simplified mindset that, you work hard in high school and then like the colleges will basically just come knocking on your door. You know what I mean? You just stack up those A's and they're like, we want you, we want you. It's a lot more than that, which that was a harsh reality that I had to face coming in my junior year. And so because of that, I feel like my experience with the college application, it's kind of this double-edged sword where I was able to kind of like reflect and grow in a way that I didn't have that I never really forced myself to. But then on the other hand, there was a lot of self-doubt, which I think many students can relate to. I fell into the rabbit hole of, hearing different people's experiences, but then starting to compare myself to them and saying, oh, well, they did this and they did that. And, they've done these activities and things of that nature. And I haven't done that. And I think that's extremely detrimental because this process is meant for you to share the things that you did, not the things that you didn't do, right? And a big reason why I say it's important to kind of shift away from that moment of self-doubt is because I'm assuming that if you're applying to these schools, there should be a portion of you that feels as though you deserve to be in these spaces. And so if you allow yourself to be clouded by this self-doubt, you're kind of already coming in with this negative mentality that you don't belong to, that you don't deserve to be there. And that could be further from the truth. And so that's what I would say in terms of the negative aspect of how I dealt with with my experience with the college application was that there was a lot of self-doubt. But I would say a really big positive though was a lot of the questions that I was being asked in terms of the prompts. They forced me to self-reflect and kind of determine my exigence, I guess I would say, in terms of why I did the things that I did. And I think that's a question that we don't often ask ourselves enough, right? In one or two sentences, I could tell you, yeah, I want to be a mechanical engineer because I want to help people. But then you're now being asked to expand on this in 650 words or 200 words and really, really hone in beyond this surface level reasoning, trying to get into the deep, deep gutter of why do you do the things that you do? Why are you interested in the things that you're interested in? And that is a question that I never really asked myself, right? And so the positive of this college application process was that I was able to self-reflect and really, really know myself in ways that I never thought to. And in regards to the knowing yourself, I think that's also a really important thing to keep in mind because your application is being read by a complete stranger. And something that I quickly realized is how can I expect a completely random human being that does not know who I am to know me, to kind of get this idea of who Hikmah is if I don't even know myself, right? And I think we tend to skip over that self-reflection. We tend to just, I think the bulk of what I'm trying to say is it's important to kind of slow down and ask yourself why. All right, why you do the things you do. Why did you partake in the activities that you did? Because I'm sure there was a reason for it. I'm sure there was a reason why you took the difficult classes, right? You could have taken the easy way out. There's a reason why you challenged yourself, right? There's a reason why you chose to do the activities that you did. I'm sure there was something self-motivation in there, that there was a purpose behind it. You were seeking something out. And you have to be able to answer that for yourself before you can then write essays and go through a college application process where some random stranger that's, interacting with you for 3 minutes can then be able to have this resounding idea of, oh, this is who you are. Something that I would say that worked with my process, I think it's, honestly, when I saw that question, I almost laughed because I felt like I could probably tell you all the things that didn't work. And one of the biggest things is my lack of time and prioritizing things, right? You cannot rush this process. As much as you would like to kind of get it over with, you cannot. You really have to go through it. And I know it's a difficult thing to balance with, senior year and schoolwork because the world will continue moving. And it will not stop for you as you're trying to do this college application process. But it is important that you find a way to make time, right? You find a way to sit yourself down and hold yourself accountable. And another thing that I would also say in terms of something that quote unquote worked was stop thinking that you're going to write something perfect. Chances are it won't be. But in a way, what makes it memorable, what makes it something that's noteworthy is the fact that it's filled with you, right? It's a reflection of who you are. And something I thought of a while back is the fact that like, we always think of, wanting to write like this perfect essay, but if this essay is meant to be a reflection of who you are and you are a perfect human being, how can you expect the essay that you write to then be perfect, right? So lean into that. Lean into the fact that the first few drafts that you write are probably going to sound and seem ridiculous, but go through the process and really let yourself fall into the ups and downs of learning who you are. So then that way it'll be easier for you to tell your story for someone else. And then secondly, in terms of, I guess, advice that I would give for, different opportunities. As someone that, again, had this very, very simplified mindset of what, the college application process was supposed to be like, I never really thought I never really learned the importance of, the activities that you do also playing a role in your application, right? Again, I really just thought it was get good grades, and again, they're going to come knocking, like they're going to beg you to come to their school. That's not how that works at all. But something that I would say helped me still be in the position that I'm in now is allow yourself to be driven by self-motivation and passion. I really do not think that you can go wrong. Right. So even though since freshman year, my mindset may not have been, oh, I'm going to strategically do these activities and strategically seek some things out so colleges can look at it. The upside was the activities that I did they came from a place of self-drive and self-motivation. Right? They came from this idea of, I'm passionate about being a mechanical engineer. And so therefore I'm going to engage in STEM related activities, right? I'm going to seek out speaking to people who are in these fields and trying to, pick their brains however I can, right? I know I'm interested in being active. And so therefore I'm going to seek out activities like basketball that allow me to feel fulfilled in ways aside from academics and aside from school. And so even though I may have been late to the process in terms of being strategic about all the different opportunities that I could have taken advantage of, I think the reason why it quote unquote all works out is because at the end of the day, if you allow yourself to do things because of passion and purpose, you find that this process becomes a lot more fruitful. And then another thing I would also say with the idea of purpose is that no matter how this college application process goes, no matter whether it's like, no matter what acceptance, rejection, or waitlist happens, if you do things for the sake of purpose, it doesn't take anything away from you, right? So an example of this that I would give would be, if I know that I'm taking these really, really difficult and challenging courses because of some self-determination that I want to challenge myself, I want to push myself further. No matter what the college application results end up, right? No matter what it looks like, you can't take that knowledge away from me. I sat in those classrooms. I woke up on those late nights and I learned what I learned. And that is a knowledge that you can never take away from me, right? The experiences that I had engaging in the things that I wanted to out of pure passion, those are moments of joy and happiness and purpose that you can never take away from me, no matter what the results of these college applications say. And so that's why I think it's something that it's, as mindful as you should be about having a vision and having a goal of where you want to go, do not let this idea of I'm only going to do this thing just so I can get into this college. Because if things do not work out the way you want to, then you start feeling as though, well, was it worth it? Right? The 4 years I spent in high school, the nights that I spent studying, the nights that I spent doing this, missing out on certain opportunities, was it worth it? And for me, it was. It was worth it because I had a reason beyond just college, right? There was something I was seeking out that no college can validate or invalidate. And so that really would be my biggest advice. Let passion and self-motivation drive you through anything, because no matter what the end results are, those are things that the end results can never take those things away from you.
Thank you so much, Hikmat. And what did you end up deciding to pursue at Columbia? I know it's your freshman year.
I'm hoping to pursue, well, I guess I haven't, what is it called when you
declare?
Yes, that word. Haven't declared yet, but I'm hoping to pursue mechanical engineering, inshallah.
MashaAllah. Wow. I was thinking you're going to say lawyer. MashaAllah. I pray for your success, Hikmah. Really appreciate your emphasis on focusing on really like being authentic to your passions, and also being reflective as a high school student on who you are, what is it that you want to do, why are you doing what you're doing. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, as a mom of high school students, children, young adults, what what high schoolers are, like, there's only so much forcing a parent can do, right? At the end of the day, it's really on you. And so you are involved in the decisions that are being made and the outcomes that are coming through by Allah's mercy and will. And so just taking some time to reflect on that can facilitate the college application process. We didn't get to the part where you started writing, you know, around Thanksgiving, but inshallah, if that comes around in the Q&A, you know, we can get there, because as we know from the college application process right now, November 1st, I believe, is early application deadline. What's it called, Hamzah? Early application?
Yeah, the early deadline.
Early deadline. Okay. Yeah. I'm not there yet. My eldest is a junior, so I'll learn all of this.
Actually, October 15th for some schools.
Oh,
yesterday.
wow.
So yeah,
okay.
It's crazy.
Okay. And so you can still get into you know, top tier universities, even if you're applying past that time, as Hikmah currently is evidence of. Jazakallah khair, Hikmah. I really appreciate all of the insights that you provided.
One thing that she may have been shy to tell you is she's also a Gates Scholar, which is an incredible accomplishment. I don't know what the numbers are, but very, very few of those. And that's also something she, I think, did a little bit later in the process. So she got a lot done after Thanksgiving of senior year. So yeah, as much as I preach 5 before college, Hikmat's a brilliant example of you know, just mashallah, you're all amazing people, and you'll be able to do this, inshallah.
Oh, and I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Hamzah. And I really appreciate Maya's statement here that Columbia is lucky to have such noor on their campus. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. That's so beautiful. Oh, Sister Maya. Jazakallah khairan. You know, next we're going to kind of get into the specifics here with our next speaker, Brother Salman. Brother Salman earned his BA from Rutgers University, a college counseling certificate through UCLA Extension, and an MA from Stanford, and he's currently a PhD student at Harvard University. So he runs the gamut of those Ivy Leagues, spanning from California to New York, I guess, and in the middle, Massachusetts, whatever, Massachusetts isn't in the middle, sorry. Khair. Salman is also the co-founder of Muslim Campus Life, which I hope he'll be able to speak a little bit about, a nonprofit organization dedicated to advocating for Muslim student needs on college campuses. Particularly in this moment, I see it as being so incredibly valuable, but it's always had a lot of value, and he can inshallah share if opportunity presents itself, and how our attendees can take advantage of that. He also launched Hidayah Services to help Muslim students master the college application process in 2011. And I actually don't have the newest website, but Salman will speak a little bit more about his newest venture in supporting college students with the college essay, or high school students with the college essay process. Salman has worked as a college counselor at 2 schools, an admissions reader at Standford University for over 5 years, has conducted over 80 workshops on a broad range of college-related topics, and has worked with numerous schools to develop their college counseling programs. Salman, thanks so much for joining us. You know, and I apologize, I invite you to please share this newest resource that you've created for students to craft better college essays. I'd love to learn more about it and have our audience learn more about it, and explain how students should be using this tool to improve their essays and tell more compelling stories. Brother Salman, Assalamu alaikum, and please dive right into it.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's great to be here with everyone. Thank you all for joining on a Wednesday night. For those on the East Coast, it's getting late. Thank you for persisting. Inshallah, we'll finish soon. But let me share my screen. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Good?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. So I'll just start by just talking about some of the resources that we've developed with both of the organizations that Sister Shaza mentioned. First, we'll start with Muslim campus life, inshallah, and then we'll jump into the resource you just alluded to. But this is really an organization that's focused on advocating for the needs of Muslim students on college campuses across the country. And one of the resources that we developed, which I encourage all of you to check out, is the Muslim College Guide. We will have an updated version, inshallah, in about 2 or 3 weeks. That's currently being finished in terms of design. But there's a lot of really wonderful sort of advice in this guide from experts in the admissions process, from Muslim chaplains who work at different universities, as well as Muslim higher ed staff who work in student affairs, who work in admissions. And this is all at your fingertips to explore and learn about. And so you see here just a snippet from Chaplain Nisa, who's going to speak in just a moment. But really, really powerful advice from folks who've been in this space for a very long time, who are working with students on a regular basis. So I highly recommend you check it out. If you guys are in public school, this is an initiative that we're also trying to get in more public schools, because there's a lot of school counselors who actually work with Muslim students who don't know how to support them, right? And so you can even introduce this to your school counselor as a potential resource to share with the broader Muslim population in your school. If you're in an Islamic school, this is also a great resource to check out, inshallah. All right, bismillah. And then the second resource that we've developed is called the Muslim Campus Index. This is a resource that's trying to document what resources are available to different Muslim students on different college campuses. Alhamdulillah, we have over 60 colleges listed, and the number is growing almost every week. But you can see if there's a Muslim chaplain on campus, and Chaplain Nisa will talk about why that's such an important thing, but something to really think about, who is on campus guiding Muslim students? Is it just peers guiding each other, or is there actually a trained and qualified person who's working with students on a regular basis? Is there access to a prayer space? Is there access to halal food? Is there access to student organizations on campus? If so, how many? Excuse me. And then also, is there access to flexible dorming options? Some schools require that you dorm on campus. And so if that's the case, what sort of accommodations can I expect? Right, and we're starting to see more and more needs of our students being met because of the advocacy that we are starting to do as a community. So you'll see at places like Columbia, where Hikmat is, they actually have a Muslim student house that is dedicated to Muslim students, right? And so this is a really cool resource. We want to see this scale to other campuses as well. Georgetown also has something very similar. But these are the sorts of things that we have to start to document, but then also advocate for as students, as parents, and as community members. This is a questionnaire that we also created that is for admit days. So if you get accepted to a college and you're going in the spring and you're going to go visit the campus, here are a list of questions that you should go and ask the university, right? And this is not only helpful for you individually, but it goes back to that advocacy piece, right? A lot of times when students have used this in the past, they come back and say they weren't expecting any of these questions. They didn't even have the answer to many of these questions, right? And it's because we are not using our voice as a community. And so this is a really easy way for you to just, have a plug and play sort of resource. So when you get, inshallah, in the spring, we'll do another webinar then and congratulate all of you on getting accepted to the different colleges you're applying to, inshallah. But we can have a conversation around what are the resources now? What is my life actually going to look like on this campus as a Muslim student, right? So this is another really great resource I just want to plug, inshallah. All right, so now we'll shift over to Hidayah Services, which is really more focused on the college application piece. And this is a resource that we just released. I highly, highly recommend everyone check it out, inshallah. It's called the Muslim Student Profiles Project. I invite Hikmat and Mujtuba to join, inshallah, if they're willing. But really trying to document and collect information around where Muslim students have been accepted and what their profiles look like, right? And so there are plenty of private companies that do this. You can look up AdmitC. There's a few others that have sort of developed in response to that one. But these are places where you could go and pay for people's actual college applications, right? And typically they range from $50 to $100 per application. And so what we've done here is make this totally free, totally accessible for the community. And what we really want students to do is take a moment to go and read through these profiles and get a sense of what sort of extracurricular activities folks are engaging in, what sort of essays are they writing, how are they representing their Muslim identity. And to the question that was even brought up earlier, how are we, every single year I get calls from Islamic schools or students about, this religious question. Can I write about wearing my hijab in my college essay, or, fasting for Ramadan or things like this? Those things are totally acceptable. But the question actually is not whether or not you should write about them, you should, but it's how you present it, right? Because you'll be surprised to say, and I just want to mention this too, because I think this past year has obviously been unfortunate in many ways, and specifically in regards to Islamophobia. But a lot of college admin, I would say, are very sympathetic to the Muslim community and are also very aware of the Muslim community. So when I was working in admissions, I was surprised to find out how the LGBTQ person who lived in San Francisco was so attuned to what was happening in the Muslim community, because year after year, they're reading applications from Muslim students, right? And so they understood what it meant to be a Hafiz of Quran, right? They understood what it meant to fast Ramadan because they've seen essays that talk about this over and over and over again. So you can certainly talk about those things, but you want to talk about them in a unique and interesting way, right? And so these are really wonderful examples of students who have done exactly that. And so I highly recommend you check it out. A very wide range of students, from people who've memorized the Quran to people who are doing research, people who are in their humanities. It's a really great resource. If you're in middle school, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, even 12th grade, I would just spend some time reading through these essays, getting a sense of how real Muslim students have presented themselves, and really kind of get a sense of the quality that you need. And some of you might be daunted by this list on the left. You shouldn't be. Even if you're applying to state schools or less selective colleges, this is, again, a good benchmark for you to understand the level of quality that you need to have when you're applying to college. And so if you want to get access to scholarships or merit-based scholarships, you want to really aim very high in terms of the essay and the sort of profile that you present to the college. And so you can filter here by different things, but highly, again, just recommend just simply reading through. And alhamdulillah, we released this about a month ago, and we've already have 1,000 views on the resource, which is wonderful. And we're continuing to add more students. And again, this is totally free. This is literally over a $1,500 value, according to just the market value of how other companies are charging for this sort of thing in the general market. Okay, so bismillah. So, and this is if you click into one of these profiles, it'll look something like this. You'll get a sense of where the student was located, what's the GPA, what was their SAT or ACT scores, what extracurricular activities they did. Again, this is a really valuable resource for 9th, 10th, 11th grade. You can kind of see, this student is more of a STEM student, and so how did they spend their time in high school to make themselves, compelling? And then you can also see the different scholarships that they applied to, right? And so if you're a low-income student who has good grades, you should certainly think about something like the Questbridge program, a wonderful program to apply to as well. And then the cool part, which I love, is we actually added a section around advice that students had for future applicants. And it's so heartwarming to read through the different pieces of advice. And it's just so nice to read things like, pray istikhara, right? Make dua, put your faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, these are the sorts of things that these students are writing in reflection of the process that they went through. So definitely check that out. And then we also have, their personal statements as well. So check that out, inshallah. Okay, so I just wanted to give some quick advice around college crunch time, the theme of the talk today, and then I'll jump in, inshallah, to how to choose a college. So just 2 quick slides here. Number 1, I think you should not stress about this process. And there is really a frenzy around applying to college. If some of you, just follow the news, there was this whole FBI operation called Varsity Blues, where college admission staff and parents and coaches were all kind of mixed up in this huge scandal that ended up with parents and college staff being arrested because they were desperately trying to get their children into these very selective colleges. And some of the parents, Dr. Shahza will know, parents from who were actors in Full House got arrested, very prominent sort of people were sort of wrapped up in the scandal. The younger folks won't know that reference, but look it up. It was a good show. Okay. And there's this sort of sentiment that if I don't get my child into X college, my child will not be successful. Or even for you as a student, if I don't get into this college, I will not be successful. And we've also seen if my child doesn't graduate from my college, my family will be less than socially, right? There's also this sense of keeping up with the Joneses. If XYZ person I know went to this college, I have to make sure my child gets into a similar college. We really need to diffuse both of these sort of sentiments and just take a deep breath, right? Everything will work out in the best way possible, inshallah. And there are many sort of pathways to the mountain of success. And even if you have to go to a community college, that could be a great option for you as a student. I know plenty of students who've done that sort of route and then done well and transferred to Ivy League schools, who've transferred to great four-year programs, and who've, again, been successful regardless of where they sort of started out. So I just want to give that sense early on that, you don't want to fall for that frenzy necessarily, and you really want to think critically and take a second to just take a deep breath. And in that vein, really think about what your goals are as a student. And this aligns really well, I think, with what Brother Hamzah mentioned and what Sister Hikmat mentioned as well. But there's a lot of misinformation around this process. And so it's really, really, really important to identify your own goals and try and objectively assess your current situation and determine what you need to do. And I'll give a few stories about exactly what I mean. But in the close to 15 years that I've been talking to the community about these sort of topics, most families I've talked to want a full scholarship to their flagship state school, right? That is what most families are looking for. And the formula to get to that path is quite clear, right? You need a strong GPA, you need good test scores, and these ranges are available. You can look up what the 25th percentile or 75th percentile range is for a specific school. So if you want to go to UT Austin, UT Dallas, UConn, UMass Amherst, whatever the college might be that you're considering, UCLA, UC Berkeley, these ranges are publicly available. And so you can get a sense of what you need to be on the more competitive side, right? Closer to the 75th percentile or higher is somewhere where you want to land, right? And this is so important now too in the test optional age, right? Nowadays, you might not even have to take the SAT or ACT, right? Depending on the schools that you are applying to. And so just really taking a second to think carefully about what your goals are as an applicant is so incredibly important. And then, generally you want to pursue leadership opportunities in your school and community, right? And this sort of basic formula will help most students get into the state schools and the public local schools that they want to attend. Few families, in my experience, are truly interested in attending these more selective colleges. And that's an issue, and we should talk about that, and I have a lot to say about that. And there's a lot of research that we should talk about as well that I think is important for us from a community perspective. But as of now in our community, I would say few people are really, truly interested in this sort of space and attending this sort of space, I should say, as well, right? Because a lot of families actually, I've worked with families in the past who want to work with a college advisor to get their child accepted to these universities, but not necessarily attending those universities, right? Because it's a marker of social status, right? I got accepted to XYZ college, but I'm actually not going to enroll in XYZ college because it's too expensive, I make too much money, and so I'd rather them attend the more affordable option. And so in this case, you do need all of these things, the strong GPA, the great test scores, the leadership, and so much more, right? And in this case, I think it does make a lot of sense to seek out external help, to prepare much farther in advance. And really that 5 before college sort of mindset is so critical when you're thinking about this space. But it's really just important to think through which option am I really pursuing beforehand. And the reason why I'm saying this is, subhanAllah, just in the last few weeks, so many examples have just come up. There was a family that, a Muslim family that reached out that was asking about SAT classes. They had invested over $15,000 in private SAT tutoring. And we went over their college list, and it became immediately clear that they didn't even want to go to a college that required the SAT, right? But they had been advised to, take SAT classes, make sure you have good, good test scores. But at the end of the day, the dream school of the student was not even to go to a school that required the SAT. And so just taking a second to step back and think through that before you sort of join this frenzy and kind of get into this madness, I think it's just so critical. The second example, a family had called asking about MIT. They really wanted their child to go to MIT. After reviewing the transcript, MIT is very, hardcore about the math courses. They love, they really require that students have taken at least calculus or have been exposed to calculus before starting. And this student was a student who had not even taken advanced algebra. And so it didn't make sense for them to do that, right? But if, despite wanting to aim for this sort of thing, they were not prepared for that moment, right? And so just, again, really try to I can't emphasize this enough, right? Try to objectively assess where you are and what your objectives are. And obviously you can talk to experts, you can talk to folks, but really just be mindful of the process and what you're looking for before you get wrapped up in the social games and the sort of, again, frenzy of this process. And lastly, just with the FAFSA, so the FAFSA, for those who may not know, is a free application for federal student aid. We're not going to touch on financially too much in this webinar, but all the students who think they might qualify should definitely apply. But there was a low-income family that I was working with who, subhanAllah, multiple siblings, father was not working, in a very prestigious job, and they hired a consultant to fill out the FAFSA. And this is, the first word is called free. It's the free application for federal student aid, right? And so there's all sorts of folks, in your public school who might come and speak to you, or all sorts of other people. Just be mindful of what you are doing and why you are doing it. That is just such an important part of this process. And so for those who are thinking now about applying to college, if you're a senior, I think Hikmat's story is actually a beautiful story of you being able to navigate this process in real time. But for the vast majority, think through exactly what it is you're looking to do and focus on that pathway, right? And just understand, did I take the appropriate classes? Mashallah, for a student like Hikmat, it seems like she was well prepared for that moment, even though it may have been unintentional, or maybe unaware, I should say, not unintentional. But you really have to think through these things beforehand before you start to jump in. All right, let me continue, inshallah. All right, so choosing a college as a Muslim student, just the basic framework that we use in the Muslim College Guide, again, check that out as well, is these three sort of aspects: the academic fit, the financial fit, and the campus culture fit. And these three are really things that you should think through. And again, countless examples of students who may have skipped the academic fit and signed up for, and there's a lot of states have technical institutions, right? New Jersey has the NJIT, NYIT, these sort of IT or STEM-oriented schools. And those can be great schools for many students. But if you're a student who is pursuing the humanities, or a certain set of, you want to become a lawyer or all sorts of other things, you have to think through whether or not that school is a great academic fit for you, right? And there's many students who I've met who go to schools like that because they offered a good scholarship, and then will transfer out because the academic fit is not there. And guess what? They lose the scholarship in that case when they transfer out, right? And so just, again, being mindful, being intentional, really understanding what it is you're getting yourself into before you start. Financial fit, there's a lot of different guidelines around this. You really want to make sure at the end of the day, the college experience is a financial investment, right? And so you really want to be mindful of what you are getting in return from that financial investment. There's a lot of different sort of guidelines around how much money you should take out in loans. Obviously, loans is a personal sort of situation, wherever you fall Islamically, but you should really think through, just objectively speaking, you don't want to be taking out loans, right? There's research that demonstrates on a very, on the general population, that loans can delay marriage. This is for the general population, not Muslim population. Can delay marriage, can delay home ownership, and have all sorts of negative economic consequences. And so you want to be mindful of that as you're choosing a college and a specific program. And then lastly, and I would say very importantly, campus culture. And it's important, I really like this quote from an admissions officer: the #1 school may not be #1 for you, right? And so thinking through these sorts of pieces is really, really important. And again, it goes back to this idea of just setting your intention and being intentional with this process as much as possible. So there's plenty of different factors you can think about, from cost to prestige to campus size, average debt that students leave with from a campus, and I'll share how you can get that information. The 10-year median salary that graduates of that university receive. This is all information you can actually access. And lastly, and I would say again, very importantly, Muslim campus life and the resources available to you as a Muslim student. You're going to spend 4 years on that campus. Is it going to be a space that affirms your faith and identity and your sense of being a Muslim in America? Or is it going to be a space that hurts and harms that identity? And that's something you should really think about. And so does it have an MSA? Does it have a Muslim chaplain? Muslim chaplains are incredibly important. Again, Chaplain Nisa, I'll lay that off to you. I'll give you the alley-oop there to slam dunk it, inshallah. But really, really important resources that we have to invest in as a community. And then access to halal food, right? Presence of Islamophobia on campus, and so much more. Lastly, just on the financial financial bit, there's a huge student loan crisis happening nationally. This is affecting the Muslim community as well. Plenty of horror stories, unfortunately, on that front. So being mindful again of how much money you're going to be spending in the college process is extremely, extremely important. And lastly, I just want to share this or I think it's my second class slide, but there's a wonderful resource called the College Scorecard. The Obama administration released this right before they left. They actually connected data from college graduates with IRS tax records. And so these are real, actual salaries that they are showing you from actual college graduates of these different universities. And you can actually break this out by race, and you can break it out by income status as well. So if you're a low-income student, what does your salary look like? If you're a high-income student, what does your salary look like? And so check this out, really, really wonderful resource. The Education Trust also has something called collegeresults.org. They basically took this data and made it more visually appealing. Either one is really, really important. If you're a school counselor, you should be going over this with your students every single year, inshallah. All right, I just want to leave you with a quote actually from one of the students. And I think Hikmat actually, really touched on a lot of these pieces, but I'll just read this and then I'll end, inshallah. But tie your camel, put in good effort, seek advice, but don't get overly attached to one particular school. Do istikhara and make plenty of dua for increasing nearness to Allah as you embark on this new journey, a good Muslim community in college, to be content with your choice and to leave with more than a degree. Don't worry too much in what happens. Don't worry too much in whatever happens. Don't despair. Rely on Allah. He knows best. I'll end it there, inshallah.
All right, thank you so much, Brother Salman. I was just trying to grab those the websites from all of these phenomenal resources that you've shared. So please do check out the chat there. Inshallah, when we send the recording, we'll try and gather all of these resources that have been shared and include these resources in the email. So definitely keep an eye out for that. If you've registered for this webinar, inshallah, with that email address, that's where we will send the recording. So thank you for sharing all of those resources, Brother Salman, mashallah, a lot of different things. I wanted to share the website, but as we're running low on time, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys take a look at the websites once we send out that email. We have two more panelists to speak, and I also see that there's a number of questions coming in here in the chat. And I'm going to invite our panelists who've already presented to please take a look at those questions in the chat and see if that's something that you can address so that we can, inshallah, be mindful of time as people are entering into the end of their, well, at least for me, the end of my operational hours. This is bedtime now, subhanallah. I really appreciate you guys sticking around because we've got some really insightful comments from both of our next two speakers, Brother Mujtuba, as well as Dr. Nisa, who will be speaking to round off this conversation. I really wanted to have a student also who had graduated from an Islamic school. Sister Hikma's presentation was phenomenal and wasn't necessarily particular to the public school experience. And I really appreciate that, Hikma, that it was something that anyone can relate to who's in high school. But in Islamic schools, as the ISLA, the organization hosting this webinar, does support full-time Islamic schools, one of the things sometimes students and parents wonder and worry about, even Mujtaba, I remember talking to your own parents about some of the limited opportunities. As much of diehard, supporters of Islamic schools as your parents were, they put all four of their children through Islamic school and they graduated through there, you being the youngest, mashallah, and I've taught many of them. Sorry, Mujtaba, sharing TMI maybe here, but really wanted to have Mujtaba come on because I think one of the things that was phenomenal about him was that not only did he tap into the opportunities that the school already had, and mashallah, Austin Peace Academy, the school from which he graduated last year, is a phenomenal private Islamic school here in Texas. But he also created opportunities. So just to quickly read off this small bio, Mujtaba, I'm sure I'm missing a lot of wonderful things that you've done and are doing. Mujtaba is a freshman at UT Austin here in Austin, Texas. He graduated just earlier this year. It's only been a couple of months now in university from Austin Peace Academy. And I put that the graduating class was under 25, Mujtaba. What was the number?
I think it was around 20, like
Yeah.
18, 19.
Okay, mashallah. So it was a bigger class for the
Yeah,
school,
yeah, which is
actually.
shocking. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Compared to Hikmah, whose class was like 800 plus.
Mhm.
But that's just to show the scale, right? The difference in scale, and obviously the different kinds of opportunities that can be available. But
Mhm.
Mustafa was an active student at his school, highly involved in his community. And not only did he take advantage of the extracurriculars that the school offered, but he also actively sought out to create new opportunities for himself. So Mustafa, really happy and grateful that you joined us. And I wanted you to take a few minutes in this webinar to talk to our attendees about how did attending an Islamic school shape your college application experience? What specific opportunities or challenges did you encounter? And how did you try and like work around those challenges in particular? And what's your advice to students here who've joined us?
Yeah, first off, I'd like to thank you all for having me. Um, uh, but to answer your question, I kind of like I broke it up so it's a little bit easier for all of you guys to follow. So there's A, B, and C, right? So firstly, I'm gonna talk about like Allah. Like I know this is a college webinar, but I just kind of wanted to bring back to the point that like Allah has a lot of things written out for us, right? So our relationship with Allah should remain a high priority. And I know Brother Salman and Brother Hamza kind of make it a little bit easier to keep those ties maintained even while you're at college, like whether there's a study room or not. And these are things that I've had to consider a lot more because I didn't necessarily look into them beforehand. But alhamdulillah, UT has a lot of opportunities available. But kind of going back to what Brother Hamza had said, it was a lot about my own like personality and authenticity, kind of extending on what Hikmah said. So, um, Islam's kind of a part of each and every single one of our identities, right? Like we pray 5 times a day. Our whole personality is kind of built around Islam, and I feel that the Islamic school APA it kind of shaped me as a person more than it did shape my application. And I think they kind of translate, they work hand in hand because the Islamic school kind of provided me with the ilm, the knowledge that helped build my connection with Islam. And I think that connection with Islam is also what helped me try to chase excellence and ihsan with like everything that I was doing, whether it be with my classes or I was very, very, very invested in soccer. And that was kind of or YM, which is like there were a lot of opportunities that were limited well at Austin Peace Academy, but I kind of tried to make these opportunities for myself. So we didn't have a soccer team, so I thought like why can't we have a soccer team? So then I went about starting a soccer team, and I know they're still going strong. So that was one thing that kind of made me stand out a little bit as an applicant. And then another thing was YM, which like it established a lot of the leadership skills that I have today. Every single time I had to make a shot, make sure I was hosting in the best way possible. And I think like even my essay was founded on soccer, and there were days where it was definitely hard. And in general, like the foundations that APA had set me up with were kind of what helped me persevere throughout it all. So that's kind of addressing like the main question. But another thing that I kind of wanted to like reiterate and restate is that it all does come down to um the student, right? And I know there is only so much that a parent can do, but I think I wasn't necessarily focused on trying to craft a perfect college essay that made me seem like perfect and a stellar scholar, whatever it may be. But I was really just trying to let the random person who was reading my application like know the person that I am. Because I think I was I was trying to develop myself as a person more than I was trying to make myself look good. And I feel like that's a common misconception that a lot of students are under, is that like I need to make it seem like I'm perfect. And these people who are reading your application, they know everyone's has their own faults. And I tried to make sure that even my faults were in my 200-word answers and in my application. And it was mainly just because I was trying to translate who am I as a person and why would I be beneficial to your university? Because those are the kind of questions that are going through these admissions offices. They're thinking, what do you bring that other students don't? And to answer that question, I think it's Islam, right? We know Islam is the perfect religion. We know that it instills us with the values that kind of make us the people who we are. I think a lot of other people or other students, they're shaped by many different factors, whether it be their parents or maybe even artists or musicians or whatever it may be. But for us, we have a confidence that Islam is kind of what we should base our values off of. And I think I was trying to have like that aspect of my application kind of clear throughout the whole admissions process. And it like, just to sum up, I was just trying to show and be authentic about like my passions, like for soccer or for doing Islamic work with YM, or whether it be through starting new initiatives that kind of made like a little bit of a difference, or maybe even made people a little bit happier. So I think alhamdulillah, we should all be grateful that we have like Islam, and we also have like a network of other Muslims who can help us out. So it was Allah and then balance, right? We're trying to make sure that we can be the best people that we can be and achieve as much that we possibly can. And then lastly, it's also connections, right? Like there are amazing organizations like the ones that Brother Salman and Brother Hamzah had just listed, and also ISLA, and also maybe even just people that you meet at the masjid. Like for example, with my Islamic school, I know I'm pursuing pre-dentistry. So one of our friends, I know Miss Shazam may know him, Ahmed, his father owns a dental practice now, alhamdulillah. So taking advantage of any opportunity possible that can also help you get an edge over other students. And lastly, there is also always a way to kind of make things work out. And my brother kind of reminds me of that constantly, because in high school he wasn't like at the top of his game compared to my two sisters. But when he went to UTSA, and me and both my sisters went to UT Austin, but he ended up having the highest GPA out of like, hopefully not me. I have to beat my brother, but um then both of my sisters, and it ended up landing him into dental school, alhamdulillah. So like there is always a way to kind of make sure that things work out. And I think it all ties down to our relationship with Allah. If we kind of prioritize our relationship with Allah, then other things will follow, inshallah.
I love it, Mujtuba. Really, really appreciate that. I'm not cutting you off, am I?
No, 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 I'm
All
done.
right. No, Mujtaba, I really appreciate, you sharing, first of all, that focus on Allah and trusting Allah and doing the work that's required, right? As a student, as a person, as a Muslim, to cultivate that relationship with Allah, so that when you are going through this kind of a process and other processes and times in your life, you know that you have Allah to rely on, and that He is the best of planners. And there was something else that I really appreciate, a couple other things that I want to highlight that I appreciate about your presentation. One, that it's okay if you weren't at the top from the beginning. There are ways to come around, and time is the best of teachers with this, right? So while one of your siblings might not have been at the top of their game in high school, they put it in undergrad, and they got into an excellent program for that they wanted to pursue, inshallah, for their career. And again, I think that you really highlighted some of the ways that Islamic school students, and I know, mashallah, we've got a lot of students here from Ibn Sina Academy, Bright Horizon in California, other Austin Peace Academy students here, that you can take advantage of that small, often smaller community that you have in the Islamic school by taking advantage of the connections and getting internships through those connections that you have, creating new clubs. Sometimes there's a little less bureaucracy to be able to do that, and allowing for, like, not letting the context create the constriction, but actually allowing your passions to create opportunities. MashaAllah. Really appreciate that, Mujtuba. Thank you so much. And Mujtuba, I invite you to look through the chat too, and Sister Hikmah, to see what our attendees are asking, because we might not have enough time to get to all of those through a verbal Q&A, but really would love for you guys to chime in there with your own experiences. And absolutely not last but absolutely not least, we have Dr. Nisa here, who is a resource, and not just for the students there at Howard University, prestigious university in the heart of Washington, D.C., but for all of us. And we're so grateful, Dr. Nisa, for you hanging out with us this long, listening to the rest of the panelists. I think one of the benefits of being the last presenter is to be able to tap in to any of the gaps that we're missing there. So while I'll ask you a question, I invite you to, chime into everything else you've been holding on to as you've been listening to others. I'd like to take a minute to introduce Dr. Nisa. MashaAllah, Dr. Nisa is a chaplain and the assistant dean for religious life at Howard University in Washington, D.C., a historically Black university and college. She is responsible for programming that serves the faith, service, and justice needs of the Howard University community. Dr. Muhammad organizes Muslim worship services and answers questions about challenges from race to religion to relationships for her students. She's also the advisor to the Muslim Students Association, the Youth Justice Advocates, the Nepalese Students Association, and the Chess Club. And perhaps this is old, Dr. Nisa. I imagine that there might even be other service that you're doing there at Howard University and beyond. Dr. Muhammad is also on the executive board of the Association for Chaplaincy and Spiritual Life in Higher Education and the Institute for Muslim Mental Health. She's the past president of the Association of Muslim Chaplains. And Dr. Nisa, given your position as a chaplain and the fact that not everyone's aware of what a chaplain is, and I'd love for you to start off by sharing a little bit first, what is a chaplain? And then, expanding that conversation further by talking about what are some other key support people or networks that students should be thinking about looking into. I'm talking about high school students as they're considering colleges that they're going to pursue. How can they identify those resources ahead of time? I know that Brother Salman talked a little bit about that. And the other aspect that I was hoping if you wanted to talk about this, or feel free to take it on to whatever other aspect you had, but what are some other specific aspects of college campus life, like student organizations, housing, and campus culture that students you think should prioritize when choosing a college? So Jazakallah khairan, first of all, Dr. Nisa, for hanging out with us this long and patiently waiting for your opportunity to share your wisdom and pearls of wisdom with us.
Assalamu alaikum. So thank you for inviting me. I'm so happy to be back again and talk to you. You're a really exciting crowd of parents and students who really want to know. And this is what colleges want in terms of the application pool. They want communities that want to know and that want to be a part of what's happening. So the first thing I would suggest that I think has not been talked a little bit about, that's the college visit. You definitely want to visit the campus that you are, even before you apply. You want to visit the campus, because there's no point in working on crafting something specifically for that school and you don't want to be there. Visit the campus on a Friday. Does this campus have Juma prayer service? Are the Muslim students active? What is happening on that campus? Just look around, walk around, see if you can schedule a visit. Just what is happening on that campus that appeals to you as a student. Can you see yourself on that campus? Can you see yourself walking the greenway, walking the yard, walking from building to building? Can you picture yourself there? And if you can't, don't apply. I mean, save yourself, the time, effort, whatever, and don't apply. Are you an urban person? Are you a suburban person? Are you a rural person? This makes a difference in where you apply. Howard University is an urban center. We are right in the heart of Washington, D.C. Can you see yourself in Washington, D.C.? We're close to New York, close to Philadelphia, close to the Carolinas. We're kind of like right smack in the middle of the Mid-Atlantic East Coast region. Where can you see yourself going to school? And all the information about knowing who you are helps you to be able to make that decision. Because if you don't know who you are, you will wind up somewhere that is not the perfect fit for you. So that is very important. I think the other thing, so I wrote down some notes. What are you looking for when you make this college visit? As I said, see if you can sit in a classroom. You know, if you want to come to Howard, we arrange for students to sit in a classroom. We give them a tour of the campus. If they're a Muslim family, I meet with them. I have them meet with our dean of the chapel. I have them talk to other Muslim students. These are the kind of experiences that you want to have. You want to talk to other Muslim students and say, do you like it here? Would you recommend I come here? Can you tell me what you're interested in? And the thing is, you want to get involved with Muslim life, but you don't want that to just be your only life. Let Muslim life be your foundation, but there is a whole big campus of activities that you potentially want to get involved in. If you are an engineer, get involved in the engineering organizations. If you're interested in humanities, get involved with the fine arts. I have to work with Muslim students that are painters, that are sculptors. And so in addition to Islam, they're also involved in the fine arts that are relevant to their academic interests and professions. There's an art gallery you can get involved in. There's art activities that are on campus, but also off campus. So when you really know who you are and what you want to do, you want to make sure the school you are going to, and not just that school, but the surrounding area has opportunities for you to expand yourself. I tell parents that college is an opportunity for your student to change their mind. That is why they are coming to school, to change their mind. If you think you're going to come to college and be the same person you come in as a freshman when you graduate, you are sadly mistaken. It's an opportunity to expand your thinking and become someone else, but you have to know who that someone else is. And the thing is, there's so many distractions that if you don't know that you are rooted in Islam, if you are not rooted in Islam, it is easy for Shaitan to take you off the get straight path. There are so many distractions. So you have to really, really know yourself. The information about housing, find out, can you opt out of on-campus housing as a freshman and a sophomore? I work with families that live in the surrounding DC areas and they don't want their children to stay on campus and they can opt out. You can opt out of housing and you can be a commuter. And I have students who have successfully become a commuter. How old are you when you're coming to campus, to college? I'm not working now with 14-year-olds who have excelled in homeschooling and they are coming to campus. That's a whole nother phenomenon. And so how old are you? And especially for students who are in private schools and homeschool settings, how old are you coming to campus? What is the support system? If you are sending your 14-year-old off to college, will they stay in the dorm? Are they going to be a commuter? What support services are there? So we just got our first 14-year-old at Howard. She's a Muslim student. We have a mentoring program specifically for her, where she is mentored by juniors and seniors to make sure everything is going the way that should be for a 14-year-old at a college campus. She has a Muslim roommate. That's another thing. Can you do roommate matching at your school? Can you, if you know somebody else that's coming to this school, can you all become roommates? Is that an option, roommate matching? Some schools allow it, some schools don't. So roommate matching is an important thing. Then you want to know, is there a chaplain? Is there somebody in religious life that you can connect with from the very beginning? I meet students while they are in high school. I connect with them on their college visit. I meet them at high school and we make a connection. Is this somebody that you feel like is going to be there for me? As a chaplain is a companion on your journey. I know I'm kind of going fast because of time, but a chaplain is someone who is a companion on your journey. We are a tour guide. We are not the haram police. Let me make that clear for parents who are calling me, what is my student doing? I don't know. Did they do that? I'm not the haram police. But what I am is a tour guide. And I am a tour guide to keep you on the Siratul Mustaqim. That is my job. I am a tour guide. I am a companion on your journey. If we're talking from the time you step on campus and you let me know what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, my job is to help you get there successfully. And I talk to students about a range of that. I said race to religion to relationships, all kind of everything in between. And the thing is, you want to make sure you have found someone that is a safe space for you. Because if you don't have someone that is a safe space that you can talk to about, I mean, any and everything, who do you talk to? Who do you take your concerns to? When you're talking to other college students who don't know much more than you. And so you want to be able to find someone in religious life or a Muslim professor that you can talk to about just about everything, because stuff is going to happen. I tell students, you can call me in the middle of the night, whatever, and I will come pick you up and I will not ask you questions the first time. But if you call me again and I have to come get you out of something, I'm asking some questions like, what is going on? But students need to know that they can make a colossal mistake and fail and it not be held against them and they not be judged by that. Because too many times in our Muslim communities, our students are judged. They are held accountable for things that typical college students make mistakes. They get in with the wrong crowd, they do the wrong thing, but they're expected because they're Muslim to do the right thing. But it doesn't have, our kids are just kids sometimes and they make mistakes, but they need a safe space. Somebody they can talk to that will open the door, close the door, and be a safe space. And as a chaplain, that should be the person you're able to talk to as a safe and sacred space. That's a whole lot in a little bit of time.
Oh, Dr. Nisa, that's wonderful. I mean, really some gems, and I appreciate that you, thought about what wasn't mentioned, and I think that that was key. Visiting the college campus and checking it out before we even get to the whole application process.
Yes.
Like, kind of a prerequisite. Start checking out things, and that involves not just that stuff right in your neighborhood, but beyond. And so maybe for the parents here, taking trips in places where there are colleges that your child is interested in or that you want them to be interested in. I mean, you can navigate the process too, right? And the chaplain is a person who could be a safe space for your students, for your children, or for yourself if you are students here joining us. And others, if there isn't a Muslim chaplain there, potentially a Muslim professor, an MSA, of course, has students, but you also want to find that adult that could have some more experience and guide you along some of those difficult journeys that are inevitable. Thank you so much, Dr. Nisa.
Thank you.
Can I ask Dr. Nisa a question, actually?
Sure.
Could you just provide some, I guess, context around this past year, especially how has your role really stood out on campus relative to other campuses that may not have had a chaplain?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the things I put down here, how does a campus handle protest? That is a very, very, very key factor. How does the campus handle protest? Some campuses, even with chaplains, handled it really well. Some, it was a colossal failure, and Muslim students suffered. So that is also a key factor. So at my university, Howard University, we have a small Jewish population. Even our Jewish students were from Palestine, so it was not really a contentious issue at Howard. But on other campuses, George Washington, Georgetown, American, who were all in the city, it was a very, very contentious issues. And the Muslim chaplains were absolutely overworked and overwhelmed by the students who were coming to their office like, somebody just spit on me. Somebody threw a rock at me. I'm just walking down the street, and they have to confront these things. And how do you, soothe a student who is just here and then like they didn't expect any of this? And so the chaplain is integral to helping students to handle the challenges of the day. But before you apply to a school, how did they handle the protest? I mean, that is very, 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 very key. I was talking to people at Harvard and Yale. Yale was not in the news. I mean, and I talked to, the chaplain Omar, who's the chaplain at Yale. Like, what did y'all do? I didn't see y'all in the news. I saw Harvard in the news. What did you all do? Because you all were not in the news. And so to find out the who, what, when, where, whys, and hows, because everybody's handling things differently. And students are getting put out, they're getting suspended, international students are getting deported. So this is a difficult time.
Yeah.
It is absolutely a difficult time. So find out from the school, how do they handle protests? That is very key. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's what's on my list of things to talk.
That's really helpful. I feel like it's almost a litmus test right now that we can use to see how Muslim students might be welcomed, or if things get difficult. And here we are, getting into the election season, and
Yeah.
next year we'll be in perhaps a more interesting space. So any other questions or comments that our panelists wanted to make? I've got all of our panelists up here. I know that we had some questions, and mashallah, really appreciate the panelists taking some time out to respond to those questions in the chat. I do see that maybe I'll ask, and we'll end with just a few comments here from our student panelists, where we have a parent who's asking about the challenges that her son has. She's saying that her son has difficulty balancing all these different things: work, studying, going to the gym, reading Quran, learning another language. And at 16 years old, maybe the priorities being, what she's saying, unbalanced. Any thoughts, Mujtuba or Hikmah, on that? Maybe even advice to the parent, or advice to the student, him or herself.
I can try and handle that question. For me, it was difficult for sure. And like I learned to balance it later on in the process. So like there was a time where I was playing for two soccer teams at once, and then I'd wake up at right after Fajr, I'd go to soccer training, then go to school, and then school would finish around 4, and then at 6 o'clock till 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, I'd have my first training with one team, and then 8:30 to 10:30, I'd have my second training, and then I'd go home and I'd study after. So it was rough for sure, but I think it kind of stems from sorry, but it stems from priorities, right? And I think like my dad kind of always instilled this in my head. He was always saying that if it doesn't help either your akhirah or your or this life, then it's not worth doing. And like my dad's a stricter guy than I am. So for me, I was trying to always make time for friends and things like that when I could, but I still kind of tried to keep a little bit of a balance, right? Like there should be certain times where you can dedicate like for example to Quran, like that should be a priority, and like scheduling can also help a lot. So if you kind of sit down and really just try and schedule when am I going to do what, and then try and plan out your day around the things that are important, like your salahs, etc., which is what I try and do at university, then it becomes easier. But
And
yeah.
Mushaba, to the parent though, is it something that a parent can kind of force or support, or does it really have to come from the student? And Hikmah, I invite your thoughts too on that.
I hope the student's not on the call, but I would say that yeah, I think the parent can, like for me at least, like 16, I was always planning like, oh, my kid inshallah is gonna be like very like locked in that, because I think you can kind of enforce it all stems from like I think everyone kind of wastes time in one way or another, like even if it be like a lot of time or a little bit of time, but I think it's kind of all just comes from how you utilize the 24 hours that you have in a day. And I think like for my dad, for example, like he would never let me go to any oh, I feel bad for the kid. But he wouldn't let me go to any get-togethers or even like our desi parties or anything, because it would either like soccer or school. Soccer or school. Like those were the where my head was always at. So
Oh, Mushaba, I saw you at many parties.
no, that was late
Family
in the
events.
game. Yeah,
Family
yeah.
events.
That's because my mom would fight with my dad.
That's right. That was mom versus dad.
Yeah, yeah,
Hikmah,
yeah.
maybe we're sharing too much here.
No.
Hikmah, go for it. Any thoughts?
Um, Honestly, like I feel like there's not necessarily anything that I can like new that I can add aside from just understanding your priorities, right? And then in terms of, like what parents can do, I definitely think that, parents should as they always do, try to like guide your children in the in the right way. But at the end of the day, as someone that is, out of state and like distance from my parents, there's a lot of self-responsibility that you then have to take on, right? And I think for me, like a big blessing actually was knowing that I was committing to a school in New York made me finally like snap up and be like, hey, you don't have your mom to, like be there to remind you to hold yourself accountable for a lot of the things, right? Whether it be with your studies or with your Islam. And so I think that kind of like invigorated a like self-purpose within me to do things, out of like my own priority as opposed to needing your parents to tell you to do things. And so that's something I would say where it's like, yes, parents do your part in encouraging your children, but then also it is up to us to make sure that we set up our priorities. Because it's when that distance starts to come and you don't have your parents telling you things to do, it's really going to start to show what you've instilled within yourself as your own priorities versus what you just did because your parents were there watching you.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. At some point, you do end up having to take on responsibility, and perhaps the sooner you do it, the better. So I wanted to share with our audience who's still been able to hang out with us that inshallah, if you are joining as a staff member of an Islamic school, we do have an opportunity for you to engage in deeper understanding of the college admissions process and how, in particular, Islamic schools can upgrade their college counseling process. So you can see here that this is a 5-week professional learning community. It is being led by Hamzah Henshaw in collaboration with ISLA, the Islamic Schools League of America. And we do have a discount code that you can utilize, inshallah, until tomorrow night. I think you get $100 off for that PLC, and I'll share that right now in the chat. But other than that, I really appreciate you all joining us. I want to especially thank our panelists, many of whom are here. It's almost 10 o'clock. I apologize, and I also thank you for joining us and staying on this late. It was incredibly rich. Each of you shared so many beautiful gems, and I ask Allah to reward you and put barakah in your time, in your energy, in all of the efforts that you all have in your respective roles, and to ease any and all of your difficulties as you have just engaged in this act of alleviating the challenges and burdens of other Muslims, young Muslims, and parents who have concerns about college counseling. I ask Allah to alleviate your own challenges, both in this life and as well in the hereafter. May Allah accept from us, and I appreciate you guys again, all of our participants, for hanging on to. Inshallah, we'll share the recording in the next 48 hours with these resources. Jazakumullah khairan. I'll stop the recording now and allow our panelists to leave, but I'll stay on just a little bit longer. Take care, everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Alaikum, everyone.